لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. They will have glad tidings in this world and in the next. لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِكَلِمَاتِ اللَّهِ. There will be no change in the words of Allah. The promise of Allah will be fulfilled. And everything He's promising the believers in this verse will be fulfilled. And the threat of Allah will be fulfilled. And everything He's threatened those people who slander this religion, who slander the believers, who vilify the religion, who murder and kill the believers, the threat of Allah will be fulfilled. لا تبديل لكلمات الله ذلك هو الفوز العظيم. This is the great victory. وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ قَوْلُهُمْ. And don't be saddened by what they say. Don't be saddened by their slander. Don't be saddened by their defamation. Don't be slandered by their vilification. Don't be slandered by their distortions. Don't be slandered by what they say. Or rather, don't be saddened by what they say. وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ قَوْلُهُمْ. This is addressed directly to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but by extension to all of the believers. إِنَّ الْعِزَّةِ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. All might, all power, all strength is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. He hears and knows all. He knows what they're saying. He knows what they're doing. He knows their plans, their plots, their conspiracies. And He will deal with that. This is what He's telling us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that there is a special status for the believers at wilayah. That's what we should strive for. How many people, everything in their life is focused on striving for this world, striving for the dunya, striving for the job, striving for the house, striving for the car, striving for the vacation, striving for the dunya. And nothing whatsoever in some instances is focused on striving for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and striving to be beloved by Allah, which is a meaning encompassed in wilayah. Striving to be helped and assisted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Striving to be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are meanings that should motivate a believer in his or her life. And just as we should strive, and there's nothing wrong with striving for the worldly things we mentioned, but that shouldn't be the ultimate objective of a believer's life. The ultimate objective should be striving for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, striving for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَشَدُّ حُبَّ لِلَّهِ. Striving for the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the bounty, the protection, the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These things should occupy a believer's heart and a believer's mind as much as striving for this world occupies the hearts and minds of many believers and virtually anyone who lacks faith in the divine and the Almighty. So these are things we should strive for. And our striving, as some of the scholars say, al-awliya يتولون الله بالطاعة فيتولاهم بالكرامة. That those who have this status with Allah, they seek it through obeying Him, through His obedience. If we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah reminds us in the Quran concerning the food that we eat. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم واشكروا لله إن كنتم إياه تعبدون. O you believers, eat of the pure things we have provided you, and give thanks to Allah if indeed it is He that you worship. So we should be expressing our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should be expressing our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is, His love should be greater than the love of anything we have in this world. And the love of everything or anything or anyone in this world should be a function of our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The love of Allah ta'ala should fill our hearts. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Those who believe are more intense in their love for Allah than their love for anyone or anything else. So this should preoccupy us. And we should understand that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us, if Allah ta'ala is assisting us, is helping us, is protecting us, then no one in this world can harm us. Allah ta'ala reminds us, again in the context of this idea of wilayah, إِنَّ وَلِيَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ الْكِتَابِ وَهُوَ يَتَوَلَّى الصَّالِحِينَ. That my protecting friend is Allah, who has revealed the scripture to guide me and to assist me in this world, to comfort me. And He undertakes the protection of the righteous. وَهُوَ يَتَوَلَّى الصَّالِحِينَ. So the challenge for us should be to work to be amongst the righteous, so that Allah will extend His protection to us, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will undertake our affair, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will extend His assistance to us. And then no one can harm us. As Allah ta'ala, or the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam reminds us in the hadith related by Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, عن معاوية رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من يرد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين وإنما أنا قاسم والله عز وجل يعطيه ولن تزال طائفة من هذه الأمة قائمة بأمر الله لا يضرهم من خالفهم حتى يأتي أمر الله. So he mentions that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, mentioned, the one Allah Ta'ala desires good for, He gives him or her a sound understanding of the religion. يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. And rather, I am one who dispenses, rather the Prophet ﷺ, he gives out the revelation to everyone. He gives the news. He informs everyone, وَاللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يُعْطِيهِ. But it's Allah who gives understanding. It's Allah who causes the seeds of guidance to fall on rocks, and nothing grows. And some hearts are like rock. Some hearts are like rock. Rather, belhum ashaddu, more intense or harder than even rocks. So, and He causes some to fall on sand. So it takes root, but the roots aren't firmly planted because the ground is shifting and not firm. And He caused some seeds to fall on fertile ground that's rich in nutrients and that's firm, and the roots are firmly planted, and they draw much nutrients from the soil, and they're firmly established, and the plant becomes unshakable. That's the parable of the human hearts. Some hearts are hard, and when the seeds of guidance fall on them, they don't take root. They bounce off and they're washed away. Some hearts are like sand. The seeds of guidance fall into those hearts, and it takes roots, but the roots are not firmly established, and there's not much nutrient in the sand, so the tree does not bear its proper fruit. And some hearts are like fertile ground, and the seeds of guidance and revelation fall into those hearts, and it takes firm root, and it bears a healthy plant that bears abundant fruit, that benefits people.